Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. My name is Rotimi Eyitayo, and this is the Good Morning Education Show. This is Wednesday, the 7th. No, Thursday, the 7th of October, 2021. And it is such a pleasure to be here once again. Remember, the Good Morning Education Show is a show that we stream from Mondays to Sundays. Mondays to Fridays, you can catch us 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And of course, on Saturday and Sunday, we have what we call the weekend special. The weekend special on Saturday starts 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then, of course, we have on Sunday evenings, we have 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's always a wonderful time on the Good Morning Education Show. And I want you to catch up with us, have a great time with us on the show. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I believe it. And I tell you this, we always have something that we say, not just to lighten our day, brighten our day, but to affirm the reality that we say, that it's always a great morning on the Good Morning Education Show. Every day we say it. Every day we say it. When we start to say it, when we close, obviously we say it. And on the show we have experts and guests, analysts that sometimes sit down and tell us, share with us on the subject matter of the day, their views, their perspective, and how we can navigate to change and to drive, a meaningful and lasting change within the space. And ladies and gentlemen, please understand, we also welcome you to contribute on the show. Please do not hesitate to ask questions if you have one. Do not hesitate to make your contributions known and felt. Please understand the Good Morning Education Show is for you, it's for me, it's for all of us. Because on the show, we learn together, we share together, we grow together. And today will not be an exception. We're going to be having a lovely conversation, dissecting an interesting topic. And we call it diversity in education. And of course, we know that when we speak of diversity, several things will come to mind. But then I'm not letting the cat out of the bag yet. We will start the show with some segments called the headlines, and where we take a bit of news on the headlines within and around the world of education. We'll talk about things that that help us to know better and know more about our world of education. And of course, if there are topical issues or topical news, we also spend some time to talk about that as well. Please do not go anywhere. This is the Good Morning Education Show, and we will be right back. Let's start with the first headline. But before we start with the first headline, like I said, don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Catch you now. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the Good Morning Education Show, and we are live and we are direct. And we're starting from the news headlines now. And the very first headline that we'll be talking about is coming from the Guardian News. And this is a news that is centered around universities, varsities across the country. We have varsities grown under huge electricity bills. This is coming from the Guardian, and the news actually captures the challenges and the enormity of the bills, that accrues. Obviously, we have a huge population in university community, and definitely that means that your consumption in terms of power will definitely skyrocket. And I understand for universities to be saying they have a lot of bills. Obviously, it's because of the consumption. I don't know what could be done, but I'm sure that with consistency, with enough pressure, maybe for universities and learning institutions, there might be concessions on their billing from the use and consumption of power. This is one of the things that we talk about, that education should actually not be subjected to how do you call it now? Shouldn't be subjected to shouldn't be subjected to the average response or dealings of any average business. We must encourage our learning institutions because of the role they play, not fully commercial, but because of the role they play. Now, the next headline says Green Springs student win STEM competition with biodegradable food packaging design. And it seems like I'm going to read the bell of blessing for Green Springs because Green Springs has always proved and shown themselves newsworthy and praiseworthy as well. So we are having such a fantastic news coming from the Guardian News. And speaking about Green Springs, if you've not heard about Green Springs, obviously in the last few weeks and months, you would have heard that there's a school called Green Springs. Congratulations to the students, congratulations to the teachers, congratulations to the school community, of course, congratulations to the parents and the management of the school. That's a wonderful thing um, to have participation in competitions, and we have students, coming tops. That's a very good. It's a very good feat. It's a very good one, and we congratulate Green Springs. We hope that more schools would embrace this approach of extracurricular and co-curricular activities to put knowledge to practice so that they can get the best out of the things that they do. That's that. So we're going to move on quickly to another headline, and it says migrating students, skilled workers to take IELTS test at homes. Fantastic. And this is a bit of a shift for those who are seeking foreign education, foreign admissions, and all. So it says migrating students, skilled workers, those who are planning to take exams like the IELTS or tests like the IELTS, they now have the opportunity and the privilege to take this test at home. So the frequency and the issue of convenience has been sorted out. Thank you so much for that headline. So we move on to the next headline. And this time around, let's take a little trip to the north. And we're going to Gombe. Gombe State is in the news. And one of the things that Gombe State is in the news for is Gombe Varsity dismisses 24 students over fraud. This is quite alarming and quite interesting because students actually being in school should most likely not something they how do I put it? They should be focused being in school. And it says no fewer than 24 students of the Federal University of Kasher in Gombe State, cutting across various disciplines, have been expelled. However, the former 23 students, including one other who was rusticated, were said to have committed varying degrees of crime punishable by the institution. According to a press statement, which was signed by Suleiman Malami, head of information and protocol, obtained by a correspondent, the student flouted the excellent laws regulating the Federal University. FUK, that's the Federal University of Kasher, was among the recently established institutions by the past administration of Goodluck Jonathan, and it is the only federal university in Gombe State. The expulsion our correspondent gathered was due to recommendations of the Senate of the university during its 68th regular meeting. Well, we don't have too much details about this, but we believe that they were actually expelled for forging results and also examination conduct. And that's so sad, so sad. Well, we hope that the students have learned their lessons and we turn over a new leaf. So let me take you to another state in Nigeria, and this time around, we are speaking about Benin being in the news, Edo State in the news. Governor Obaseki has hired 1,000 teachers. This is coming from today. The Today News is saying that the governor of Edo State has hired 1,000. Okay, so let's have another one. Knowing full well that we just came out of the celebration mode on World Teachers Day, there's something about the Nigerian Union of Teachers, and I'm sure this will be bad to read. World Teachers Day, NUT accuses Niger government of failed promises. Failed promises. I I really look forward to conversations around teacher welfare and development. But at the same time, I also feel that the Nigerian Union of Teachers, I feel that there might be a need for us to also have a rethink as to what the charter of that institution or that association or union represents. Yes, there might be a pressure group, but the world and the demands of the profession today needs a different kind of representation as opposed to what we see. I believe they're doing a great job, but I think their messaging also needs to be worked on. The kind of messaging that they have, very important. And so the Niger State government will appeal to you to listen to the NUT, and with regards to promises made, let's see how this can be sorted out amicably as well. The next headline says banditry. Out of school children hits 775,000 in Katsina. And we know that, of course, there's something called the law of cause and effect. And I think this is what we are having as an issue right now. In some of these areas where you can easily see that banditry, insecurity has really plagued this society. Castina is almost clocking a million. That's 775,000. That's a pretty much 225,000 away from being a million students. I think that our government and the authorities should really, intensify efforts to curb this unwholesome trend, because it's really not a nice thing, not nice at all. Then let's have another headline. Next headline says Unical VC warns staff against extorting new students. How how truthful this sometimes could be is when you look at some of our past experiences and you realize that it's a fault or a crime, number one, to be someone who's asking questions or who is new in the university system. Sometimes it's as if it's a crime during your years of being a student. I feel that people take advantage of students and bully students into things that are not even ethical, that are not authorized. But because a lot of people are not sure, they don't have a voice, there's no reporting authority of some sort, we see a lot of unprofessionalism, and sometimes eventually leads to extortion. Extortion for things you've paid for, extortion for things that are free, extortion for things that is mandatory, that the service provider, this in this case, the school, is meant to be the one actually championing. We see many people try to show or play this favor card like they are actually performing and executing a favor on behalf of the students, whereas that's what they are paid to do. We see sometimes the issue around submissions, um, around arrivals, around closing time, around emergency requests. It's sad, truly, truly sad. So, well, It's good that we're having the number one person in the university lending his voice for our voice. Okay, learning our voice, to make sure that this is something that is sorted. And then we come to the last headline for this morning. And the last headline is around Lagos. So if you're in Lagos people, this is for us. All right. We want to talk about Unilag now. Unilag is in the news as we speak, and we want to hear from Unilag what exactly is happening. Unilag announces dates for 2021-2022 post UTME, and they are listing their criteria. This is interesting. So for those who actually are seeking admissions into Unilag, this news is for you. And of course, it's the University of Lagos will start its 2021-2022 post-UTME exercise on Monday, October 11th. The management made the announcement on Wednesday. Only candidates who scored 200 and above are qualified to sit for the test. The statement said screening into all courses and programs will commence from Monday 11th of October to 29th of October 2021. It noted that candidates who made Unilag their first choice are eligible for screening. They must possess 5 credits at one sitting in O-level subjects, including English language and maths. However, candidates who will not be 16 years of age by 31st of October are not eligible to apply. Those who do not participate in the post-UTME screening will not be considered for admission. Well, that is it. I don't know if the exam is free, but that's coming from Unilag. And to all those who want to go to Unilag, I say good luck. Good luck in the post-UTME. That's a very competitive admission and enrollment. Today we will be going straight to the conversation of the day, and our topic is diversity in education. Of course, when we talk about education, diversity, especially in today's world, we cannot run away from that. I feel that it's something that people should consistently understand, that if there's any sector, if there's any sphere that can actually show the need for diversity, is education. And some of the things I've seen, studies have shown, that we're in an environment that keeps changing. We're in an environment that keeps changing, and which simply means that it will affect education as a whole. In fact, not just education, it will affect schools, it will affect classroom. We need to have these things, at the tip of our fingers so that we understand how it is, and how to promote this diversity. Exposure is one of the number one reasons for diversity in education. And you can also get a little bit of a branch of, when we talk about diversity in education, to think of diversification. I remember when the current government came in, there was a strong talk back then about diversification, diversification of the economy. If the economy would diversify, it means that there needs to be a, not necessarily division, but a branch off into certain things. And I think that education is totally of age, especially now we practice this in the part of the world, to get into a situation and a state of consciousness for diversification. There has to be diversity. I think that it's a bit lopsided or one-sided to actually try to put everyone on one common track, empower them on one common track, communicate and transfer the knowledge in the same track. It's like, it's almost like everything is on a one-way street. But then when we begin to understand that these children are coming from different homes with different values, when we look at the need of the society is in a different way. Society is in need of so many things, right? When we look at the complexity of the world and we look at the competitive advantage we want to have, then you begin to see that education needs to be a sector that promotes, that sings out loud diversity. And one of the things that you would see is that to commence that journey, we need to, number one, as a people, from the top to the least, from the biggest to the smallest, we must begin to ask ourselves the value and the values of diversification. We must have value for it, must have something that makes it look pricey, something that is not, because when education is not diversified, it is exclusive. It is sometimes going to sideline some set of people. So we need to be able to get an education that embraces people. And think about it, that's probably why you also see that as we diversify, you keep hearing the advocates and the people who have been shouting about inclusion. You know, you begin to see the essence why we talk about having an inclusive education, because it's also some measure of diversity. It's also some measure of not well diversification, because the truth is education is diverse. It's a expansive and extensive um, platform and sector. And so we as a people must begin to think thoroughly how diversity can come in. And experts have said that, because look, we need to encourage these things, you know, consideration of education from all aspects. And like I said, if we're going to top the agenda, the very first thing that we should be looking at is our values. We must have education values that speaks about diversity, uh, of let me just quickly put that our education value should be. So it should be of diversity, right? Um, that's just it. It should be of diversity. I think that that's how these things will start. And once we begin to have values, then these values will begin to portray, or better still, cascaded in sometimes policies. When we have values first, policies will follow. Policies, policies help to open our eyes and open our minds, open our ears on how to really make the education environment an education environment that has perspectives and beliefs in diversity, that has the understanding that one of the shortest way to increase the quality of the products that we produce, the outcomes of the people that we have, is the values. I remember speaking somewhere, and while I was speaking, one of the things that I was trying to analyze, I said, look, sometimes we seem just to celebrate success or successes and success stories, but we don't tend to internalize the lessons that could be learned from the success stories. Or better still, we don't even try to codify the success stories to our own advantage. And that makes the history incomplete, because sometimes after a while, you kind of find out there's a gap. Some people have been successful, and after a long while, there's no replication, there's no one following after. You are asking yourself the question, what went wrong? How did this happen? Then you realize that, oh, this is what actually happened. The people that succeeded, we praise them into this aura of wonderful personal pursuit, personal effort. They've achieved it, but we didn't ask questions. We didn't codify what they did and what was in their favor to be able to say, if anyone wants to get into the success arena, you need to follow suit. These are the individuals who've positioned themselves, who've placed themselves in such a way, in such a manner that, guess what, they're able to follow. Because I believe that success will always leave clues. And if success leaves clues, there are clues that we should follow. The same thing comes when it comes to education. We need to realize that the society is in need of a huge, in fact, a lot of solutions. And that speaks partly about a problem, but it also speaks majorly about solution. And we must raise and build an education that creates a group of people who have the penchant, the appetite to drive for possibilities. And how will this happen? Number one is that we must begin to value it. And you see, there's a concern where some people feel this is how it's been handed to us, this is how it should be done. And as we preach standards, as we preach quality, as we preach regulation, we must also understand that we must hold it with loose hands. Because if you are not careful, what happens is that we bring standards and uphold it to the point where we are fixed. We are also stuck, so fixed in nature, fixated to the point that because this is how it is, we are not accommodative of any other thing. And this is something that should be a food for thought for all of us. We must look at ways where we can encourage, unique identities, and abilities, and which I feel might also affect, it might affect our grading system. It might affect our teaching styles. It might affect our adoption of assessment, what you would call exams. It might affect even sometimes what we are looking for and probably alternative benchmark for higher institutions. Because the truth of the matter is, there are certain things that we should ask ourselves, especially when we look at a quality-based society, a society that is passionate about driving education, a society that is passionate about driving change. The thing that should come to at the back of our mind is this. Sorry, I think we have one of our analysts here. Okay, Titi, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Rotimi. Good morning, everyone out there joining us on the Good Morning Education Show. It's a wonderful Thursday morning, and I'm happy to be here.
It feels like you want to read the weather forecast.
It promises to be a sunny day compared to the rainy day it was in Lagos, Nigeria.
Thank you, Titi, our meteorological expert. Thank you for that weather forecast. So we're talking about diversity in education, and I was trying to paint a picture that when we talk about diversity in education, we must see it as a need, because it must be something that dovetails from the value. We must value it, and it must reflect in our values. Then we also said that it must be something that must permeate through policies, because diversity is actually one of the things that inclusion or education inclusion, inclusiveness in education is also piggyback, and is having a piggyback on that as well. So what are your thoughts on this, please?
So let me ask a question before I answer. Are you talking about diversity in terms of people or in terms of content or in terms of resources? It could be. It could be. Okay. Let me start from content in terms of diversity. When people think of education, they always focus on certain things. You can think about maths, English, and science. That's usually the default, or think about only the academics and not the sports. So when I think of diversity in content, I'm saying ensure that there's a lot of diversity in whatever it is they are teaching to children, because the children themselves are diverse. So not everybody will be a math genius, a science genius. Some people is just art. Some people it will be public speaking. It's the fact that they are very good orators. Some people, it could be critical things. They just know how to join the dots. So it's important that the education that you're giving them offers an opportunity for each person. Don't let it be that we're only giving prizes for maths, we're only giving prizes for English. Some people, honestly, it could be even something as beautiful as handwriting. For some people, it could be that they are not the book kind, in quote. They're more of the physical, hands-on things. So we need to ensure that when we look at our content, it allows for that level of diversity, so that each child can have an opportunity where they shine and where they express themselves. It's the same thing that you must have those extracurricular activities where people know that I am not the one in class, but when we get to the field, that's my kingdom. So it's important that we have those diversity that gives every child an opportunity to express themselves, to excel. So that's what I would say in terms of diversity, in terms of content. Diversity in terms of resources is that when you go to schools, you find a lot of schools tend to have mainly women. Some school, when I look at them take pictures, especially these teachers, I'm struggling to see any any male. So I think it's also important that we also have diversity in resources, because one of the beautiful things that everybody has something to bring to the table. So I would say when we are also looking, let's also look for diversity in gender. When we are also recruiting the resources, let's also look for diversity in terms of, let it not be from one particular tribe. We really need this diversity. We also need diversity in terms of the students. So I feel that schools that are in a particular in a particular class should have a program that allows diversity to come into the children. If not, the other children grow up without appreciating some of the other parts of society. So I love when I go to schools. I know that this school's school fees is really high, but they have a scholarship scheme that they allow for students from undeserved communities to be part of that, to have access to the opportunity as well as the networking. I'm a product of diversity. I grew up in Lagos. Went to a school in my area, where a lot of people's parents were civil servants. That's really how we grew up. It was when I went, and then because I lived in Lagos, where I was, a lot of the people were by default, mainly Yorubas. We had some people from other places, but I think we were there. So my first diversity as a student was when I went to a unity school, and that's when I then met people from all over Nigeria. I can say that that's really what made me a true Nigerian, because I met the Igbos, I met people from Kogi, from the north, and a lot of that diversity in the student population broke a lot of my mindsets that my parents, as typical Yoruba parents, had brought me up in terms of what they had to say about one tribe or the other. So it's also important that we also have a diversity in student population. A diversity in student population in terms of them coming from all walks of life. It just makes for a richer experience. It makes you a better person. Each of the students come out a better person, because a lot of the stereotypes that you grew up with tend to be broken in that place. And then lastly, the diversity and inclusion that we're also driving for children with special needs. It's important that we create a generation of people that have empathy and understand that disability is not as it's defined. I also was one of those people that felt, because someone was not able, then the person was disabled. I had that mindset had to change when I actually met people that even though they had one disability or the other, they were fantastic. They were really, in a sense, no different from me. So it began to help me to appreciate, looking at people in different light and not judging them by what people have turned their, inability, so to speak. So I think those are just my initial thoughts on diversity in education. And welcome, Mr. Olushola.
Thank you, Titi. Thank you, Rotimi Eyitayo. Good morning to our tribe members. Talking about diversity, I think even the way God has created us, God wants us to diversify. And until we come to terms with that reality, we are not going to cure the disease of stereotype. For individual, in diversity in individual, now what comes to mind readily is the issue of the work of our Gardner and multiple intelligences. Do you know how many of these children who suffered a lot of verbal attacks, some were beaten almost to stupor just because they didn't understand mathematics? Look at you, see, your sister, your younger sister is the one who will be teaching you mathematics. And that the person doesn't know mathematics does not mean the person will not make it in life. Some people, it is sport they want to do. Some of them, it could be the power of oratory. They have. Some, it is visual. But because we want, so and so has done it this way, and funny enough is it, I overheard Rotimi talking about codifying successes that are gone ahead. You know, at times, it's good to take our personal lessons from the success of others, not to just jump into the shoe of that person, because you may not be caught out for that thing. Oh, so can't you see so and so? He's an accomplished lawyer, and because of that, your mother comes back and begins to sing the song of becoming a lawyer to you every day. Once you tell him why you are not going to be a lawyer, you have destroyed a dream. You are not following the step of people who are successful. And because of that, it's good to listen to those who are successful. However, we shouldn't lose our own identity in the process. What has the person done? I can glean from, imbibe why I chart a course for my life. Not that I should jump on the same ship with the person who is a medical doctor because it's an accomplished medical doctor. And I'm not cut out to be a doctor. What has he done? The discipline, the focus, the rigor of having to read and learn. Yes, that would be good for me. But to now wake up one day and say because it's an accomplished doctor, then everybody I have to be a doctor. No, that person may end up becoming miserable. And for education, of course, if there is no diversity, the stereotype will kill the sector. Yes, if everybody has to do the same thing, then there is a problem somewhere. We are not going to be able to meet the need of our divergent clients and students if we told the same path. I think I want to stop there for a while. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that brilliant submission. And I really want to take this question to Titi. What do you think might be the monster or mountain standing in the way of diversity in education, especially in Nigerian context?
What is the monster? Wow. I'm not even sure how to answer. I would. The first thing that came to mind is diversity itself. And the reason why I say this is that if you didn't come from a diverse background, it's hard for you to see the need. That's what I mean. For any of us that went to, when you went to the federal universities or the unity schools, you appreciated the diversity that came in there. and that's a lot of, the quota system that grew up in our time. And the fact that most of us did not go to private schools, in quotes. In those days, private schools were not what were reigning. I mean, I went to a private primary school, but by the time we got to secondary school, it was the federal schools. And those things were being driven by, quota system, and they had a purpose. I remember one day our principal said that the purpose of Unity School was a post-war initiative.
Integration.
Yes, so it was a post-war idea, So it's that thing of that I say that you need to have come from a diverse background to realize that there's a need, and that can be the monster in the room. So one of the things I feel that is really driving the hedge more and more in Nigeria is that fact that everybody is go to your tent or Israel. The people in the East are schooling in the East. The people in the North are schooling in the North. You don't have Yoruba friends. You don't have, because those are the things that allow you to not to fight your brother, or the Muslims to their Muslim schools and the Christians to their Christian schools. So that's why I said diversity itself is the monster that is affecting diversity in education. So in as much as we like all those, yes, we want people to have Christian faith and all that, we need something that fosters the diversity. So for me, I'm like, if the government makes it a major thing whereby you, as a school, you just need to have a diverse population. It's just the same way they're trying to put in the gender equality. We need something that is a major item on the agenda. It needs to be a major item on the agenda. Let's not school in the North and it's only the Northerners you come. Because if you're not diverse in your upbringing, it's hard. Honestly, because I thought as a Yoruba girl, till I went to school. So I went to a Unity school. Then I realized that, oh boy, these people, whether Muslim or Christian, whether Igbo, Hausa, or whatever it is, we are all the same. These are my brothers, these are my sisters. Till today, my closest friends are not necessarily Yoruba people. I have very tight people. They're Hausas, they're Muslims, they're Igbos, from all over the world, from all over the country. So for me, the monster is the diversity itself. That needs to be not to be looked as a monster, but to look as an ally and as a friend, and as a major one that will bring us together, that we might be able to work in unity. And it's only when we have that unity of purpose that this country really can be. So it's not me against you, it's us together to push this thing forward.
Thank you so much. And that the way you tackled it, I really love that approach. But which simply brings us to the issue: do we really have a current day or a current date or a current? I'm trying to get the word. Something that dates our purpose or that points us to our direction for education now, because you just brought out something inside of me that I didn't give it this kind of description, but for the purpose of this show, let me share a little bit of this. So think about it. You said, for example, the purpose of the Unity School was to actually galvanize, people together, especially because it was more or less like a post-Civil War initiative and the likes. Okay, right? There are many things that are plaguing us today, and which I believe if we're able to do that with response to what was plaguing us back then, which was the need for national unity, how can we articulate, or is there something that should actually be the reason for diversification, as it were, now? That's Olushola to answer that.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Titi has made great submission, and I quite agree. I now discover that being diverse, as she put it, appears to be a problem. Then I also discover what is fueling that is a problem of one-sided story. That you didn't have a diverse background is bad enough, but for you to be told a one-sided story makes it worse, especially when the other region have been painted black before you. Now, we need it, but do we have the sincerity of purpose? As it is, we may not understand the magnitude of what is in our hand. For education, if we refuse to go the way of diversity, we will be changing the coming generation. And it is said that a lie often repeated appears to be true. Where there is no diversification, we will further disintegrate in our mind, the way we do things, our approach to things, and the children we are raising are likely going to have a sort of holistic view of education, holistic view of the country. So for now, the purpose of having a robust total education, as far as this nation is concerned, diversification is the way to go. Unfortunately, I wouldn't know whether that has been brought back. History has also been abolished or something like that. I don't know whether they have restored it now. Yes, sincerity or purpose. There is a common front. This, how do they put it now? I'm trying to remember this adage. One area quite be more. Yes, if we continue to go the way we are going, then we only follow one particular straight course, neglecting the others that are available. And that doesn't make our education total. Because you only be seen from one angle. Your orientation, your exposure, your thinking is going to align with that one same line, except you have other means of learning or other means of having access to some of the other information that are available. For the education sector, if we are going to have robust students who will go on to play at the global stage, I think we have to diversify so that when our students even leave this shore, some things are not going to shock them. They are not going to be hearing their own story from an outsider who probably has not even been to the country before. So I think that's what I want to say.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to ask this question very quickly, because from what you guys are saying, and of course from research showing, a critical evidence of a diversified education is access, or a critical success factor for that is access, open access. And I'm going to take that question to Titi. How can we begin to look at access from an industry point of view, from stakeholders' point of view? Because I know that many years ago, people going back to school, and back to school season, you could literally smell, feel, and touch it. People would travel from Lagos to Jos to go and resume, in some cases unaccompanied, and that means that transportation is a major enabler for that open access. New town planning is a major enabler. So many things. So, Titi, how do we address this issue of access? Because people think that the issue of education is just Ministry of Education's palaver. Over to you.
Rotimi, right now, the first thing that is hindering access is security. That's the first thing. And you're right. I mean, my secondary school was FGGC Owerri. When I first started, we used to go by air, and a lot of these things were unaccompanied. I think the first time I went, my dad went with me, and the other times the school made the arrangements and we were accompanied. Later years, I now was going by bus. We all meet at Jibowu, Ekene, Dilichukwu. The buses are arranged. We enter, and all the way to our school. And we're not the only ones. We used to see school people from Benin, people from all over on the journey, or at Benin, or But honestly, the country was much safer than it is. With cases of kidnapping, I think before we even talk about the other ones, one of the major issues that need to be tackled is the insecurity. Because if I'm looking at it and saying I want to send my child now out, it will be hard. I don't want to hear stories that the whole bus was waylaid and all of them were carried and asking us for ransom. So I think first of all, based on where we are now, the situation, the insecurity in the country is something that needs to be addressed, and that's really beyond, the Ministry of Education. I think that's the number one. And you're right, transportation too. The roads. Oh my goodness. Well, thank God for places like Lagos State, where the Lagos State governor is doing a lot in terms of infrastructure. But we also need, things like the train to Ibadan is now a fine. It's not a good. It's a good initiative. Also, the train in the north. Those are some of the things that make you also considering those things even more viable. So I agree. The next is infrastructure in terms of the ease of movement of people and things. Also help. So even people know that they can take their children longer distances because of all those things. So I think those two things are some of the things that help promote access. And then lastly, which is the one that comes back to the ministry itself, is in terms of the policy that encourages the access. I think that's also important.
Wow.
Back to you, Rotimi.
It's like each time you just keep asking the question, you keep seeing more and more, like there are layers and layers and layers. I think that I'll just ask Olushola to just paint a picture of a benefit and use that as a parting shot. And also I'll ask you, Titi, to also paint a picture of the benefit of a diversified education sphere. An education system that's diversified, and that use that. So over to you, Shola.
Thank you very much. We have enormous benefits. The only thing why my ginger is not up about those benefits is what is is what why I'm not ginger about those benefits is what Titi has just said, especially the issue of insecurity. It's like taking 3 steps forward and taking 5 steps backward. And it's good to postulate and theorize, but I tell you, each time a parent, guardian thinks about the problem of insecurity, the monster is so big that it will swallow any benefit that want to emanate from diversity as far as our climb is concerned. That being said, it fosters greater unity, greater integration. Hello? As I know that somebody who goes to the east, I wouldn't know if Titi speaks Igbo very well. Yes, but at least I know there are some people, by the virtue of going to this other region, they were able to pick up a new language. To them, it was like a child's play. They didn't attach meaning to it. But our time and age now gives them an edge because they can speak second language, they can speak the third. And in a way, they can easily compete with their mate and have the edge because they can speak and understand another language. And I think it also gives us a better understanding of that terrain. Somebody is not just telling you a story and you swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Now you know that I've been there. The way you describe those people is not really who they are. So it helps us to be stereotype. It helps us to avoid the danger of single story. It fosters friendship. In fact, it brings about intertribal marriage. Yes, you went to school. Yes, you've gone to school by SS3. Who says you cannot fall in love, even though you are not married immediately? You reconnect after 6-7 years and say, Aruna, how are you? You used to be my crush in those days. You reconnect. You know.
Do you know?
Yes,
I'm said that thing. I just have to comment.
Go ahead.
When I was in school in the East, all the Igbo girls used to laugh and say, "Oh, this Yoruba batin." That's how they used to call us. And now, so amazed at how many of them when they now went to other university in various places outside of the East, how many of them are Yoruba men? Every time I see that, Ungazi, Adeyinka, we just start laughing. I say, so you came to our side.
Umbati eventually. Yes. And sincerely speaking, if not for being in those regions, one may miss the love of his life or her life, sincerely speaking. Then it also opens up your eye to the peculiarity of that region. Somebody who is been, I served with a guy in the north, but because he's coming from the east, he transports palm oil from Ogoja to Adamawa. I may not know those things exist, but going there, seeing the culture, going to the market, do you know, can open me up to the very task of my life. I may graduate and not necessarily look for a white-collar job, but because I could see the opportunity, the value chain of a particular business line, I go back there and I start that business. So there are so many benefits. I will stop here so that Titi can come on board. Thank you.
I don't know. There's nothing to add. Though. You might meet the love of your life when you go to the other side.
Especially that one.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I think, I'll just end up and say we need diversity in education. That for me is just the sum total. We need diversity in education. It's really by, how will I say, fully immersing someone in diversity. It's not something that just rubs off on you, by a lecture. No, it's something that through constant immersion you come out diverse, and we need a diverse population, diverse in their mindset, that allows them to be tolerant, that allows them to be more empathetic, that will bring some of the peace that we really need in this country. It will not completely eliminate tribalism. It will not completely eliminate it, but it will go a long way in minimizing it. So diversity in education is something we need to promote across all. When I started, I said in population, student population, in teacher population, in content, and also in the activities of the school. Thank you.
All right. Everyone that heard us today has also seen that consistently the issue of diversity is not an option. We believe it should be a must. In fact, we should almost demonstrate it by having maybe a department within the ministries to be called a department of diversification or a department of diversity. And it won't be hard to also have a commissioner of diversity if possible. But as we end the show, we want to end in our own usual way. We will be back tomorrow for a greater show, for a greater experience. But until then, I would like to thank Titi for joining. I'd like to thank Olushola as well for joining. And of course, Ayobolanle and all our tribe members and those who are watching us and those who watch the replay. Thank you for joining and making it a wonderful time today. Remember, as we end the show, we have something to say to you. At the count of 2, 1, 2.
It's always a great awesome,
morning.
fantastic, fabulous morning on
the Good Morning Education Show. We have to trademark these Titi's ginger.
Bye. Diversified ginger.
All right, bye everyone. Bye.